Hey everyone, I'm Ronan, and welcome to my guide to the Necromancer for Baldur's Gate 3. When you think of Necromancy, I'm sure one of the first things that comes to mind is going to be the Animate Dead spell. And although there are multiple ways to learn this, whether it's through equipment that you can gain in Acts 2 and 3, or even if it's through the spell itself that you gain from being an Oathbreaker Paladin, a Cleric, Sporekeeper Druid, Bards can learn it, and even Warlocks can learn it as well. So the question is, why go Necromancer subclass for Wizard then if all these other classes can learn it as well? Well, the Wizard subclass is going to gain 3 unique things, however only 2 of them are really strong. One of them specifically is the main reason why you would go Necromancer. A. At level 2, you gain the Grim Harvest subclass feature. Once per turn, whenever you kill a creature with a spell, you gain HP equal to twice the spell slot used, and 3 times if you use a Necromancy spell instead. Basically, this is just passive healing you'll just have throughout your playthrough. It's okay, but free healing is never a bad thing. At level 6, however, this is when you have the big time, really nice Necromancy feature. So at level 6 with the Necromancy subclass, you will gain the Animate Dead spell if you did not already know it. You're undead. When you go to Animate Dead, you actually animate additional corpses, which is really nice, so you can have a massive horde of zombies, undead, archers, whatever it may be, ghouls even. But the undead you summon from the Necromancer subclass from the Wizard, A, they have additional HP equal to your Wizard level. So at level 6 it would be 6 extra HP, and of course at max level at level 12 is 12 extra HP. However, you also add your proficiency bonus to their damage as well, which is really nice because that is going to really help out to have a lot of chip damage, and when you combine that with some endgame items, your undead are going to hit really hard. Furthermore, at level 10 you also become resistant to necrotic damage, and your hit point maximum cannot be reduced beyond its normal amount through spells. With that being said, let's go ahead and break down the Necromancer. So let's go ahead and talk about the Animate Dead spell first, because it does have quite a few different interactions depending on the spell slot that you use. So firstly, no matter what, it is going to cost a level 3 spell slot base. So when you go to Animate Dead, I could use it here. You can see I can actually upcast this a few different ways. A, if I use the regular Animate Dead, I could do Skeleton or Zombie. Let's start with Zombie because this is what most people are probably going to use. So when you click it as a level 3 spell slot, you can see I can target multiple corpses. Normally, you can only do this with 1 if you use the Animate Dead spell base, but because I am a Necromancer, I can do it on more than 1 corpse. So let's go ahead and summon so you can see what the abilities are. So for the Undead Thralls, you have a couple abilities that they can do. They have Jump, just like any other class, which is nice. Dash, Disengage, pretty simple. But they do also have Slam. Base attack ability, does okay damage, but what makes it special is the debuff called Crawling Gnaw. Whenever you hit a target with this, it's a disease that the target will receive. If they die while they have this disease, they will actually become a newborn zombie. That newborn zombie that is raised through the Crawling Gnaw disease cannot be controlled and will attack whatever it wants when you are in combat. Animate Dead, if you use it at a level 4 spell slot, however, is a little better. As you can see, I can target 4 creatures at once to create undead with, which is nice, and they have the same abilities. The other level 3 spell slot you can use for Animate Dead is going to be the Skeletons. So the Skeletons are actually archers. This is pretty nice if you have a group that does a lot of AoE and melee damage and you don't want your zombies to be hit. The Skeletons come in handy because the Skeletons attack with ranged weapons. As you can see, they do have their bare unarmed strikes they can do, however, they don't have the disease that we just talked about. Instead, they can attack with ranged weapons, This will do piercing damage and necrotic damage as well, which is nice, and they actually hit pretty decently hard. Because you do have the additional damage from being the Necromancer, you'll be surprised how much additional damage this will actually do to the enemy. And of course, just like the undead zombies, you can upcast this at level 4 to get Skeleton Squad, giving you 4 skeletons you could summon at once. So what about the other undead you could use instead then? Well, if you take a look at the undead spell, if you cast it at level 5 or higher, you can actually summon ghouls. And there's 2 versions. You have the flying ghoul as well as the regular ghoul. So let's go with the regular ghoul first. And you can summon 2 at once as a necromancer. Normally as other classes it would only be 1. So you can see the ghouls look a little different, and they have a little bit of a different concept to their damage. So let's start with their base ability, which is the main reason why you would use them. You have claws, does some decent damage, but they have the ability to paralyze the target. Paralyze is extremely strong because whenever the enemy is paralyzed, if allies attack that enemy within 10 feet, it is a guaranteed critical. So ghouls are really nice to have in your party, especially if you have a lot of melee characters, because they can paralyze the target for you, allowing your friends to set up 100% crits for mega burst. It's also nice for CC. They have the ability to essentially knock the enemy out. The reason why that's useful is because their follow-up ability, Devour, is a way for them to do really big damage, but also heal as well. As you can see, it only works on a knocked out, prone, or sleeping target. So one thing I really like doing, if you are the wizard and you have a bunch of spells that create ice on the ground, for example, the ice fields create great ways for enemies to be knocked prone. Or if you have someone else in your party that can just knock them prone in general, it's a great way for your ghouls to follow up with their stronger ability to then devour them and gain HP. The other version of ghouls that you have are going to be the flying ghouls. Now these ghouls, in my opinion, just look really, really cool. And they can fly, which is nice because that means they can reach targets that are at higher advantage that your other minions could not reach. Just like the regular ghouls, they have the claw attack that can also paralyze, which is very nice in order to follow up with CC or for big time crit damage. They also have Devour as well, but they do not have the option to do passive non-lethal damage. So the only way they will actually be able to devour is if someone else in your party sets it up for them first. Speaking of ghouls, this is separate from necromancers in general, but with the necromancy of Thay that you get in Act 1, if you continue its quest chain into Act 3 and complete the additional steps in the Sorcerer's Sundries, whoever read it in Act 1 can now have the Danse Macabre, allowing you to summon 4 additional ghouls that are a separate entity from the others. These ghouls, however, cannot be controlled, and they will just attack any hostile target that you're fighting. And just like you can upcast the level 3 version of Animate Dead to upcast it to even higher to get 4 corpses at once, or zombies or skeletons, you can do the same thing if you go to use the higher version of it for actual ghouls. So if I go to hit Animate Dead and you go for a flying ghoul or for regular ghoul, when you click it, you have the option to upcast for a 6th level spell slot, and by doing so, you can raise 4 ghouls at once. But what happens if you want more than just ghouls? Maybe you want something else with you at the same time. Well, that is when we need to actually do some testing. And I do want to showcase here, I have my 2 ghouls now. So what if I wanted a skeletal archer as well? So if I come over here, and you can see I have my Animate Dead spell. I'm going to go ahead and use Skeleton right here on this corpse. And you can see it's a level 3 spell slot, and it's a different type of undead. So if you use it, bam, it actually overrides the other undead that you already had summoned. And that's because it's the same spell that you're using, so one will override the other, so do keep that in mind. However, you do have an ability called Create Undead, which is going to be different. This ability here is actually going to summon a mummy that has its own unique skill set. So if you take a look, the mummy here, it has substantially more HP than your other undead that you would normally summon. It has the ability Rotting Fist, it does decent damage, bludgeoning, plus necrotic. It will also put Mummy Rot on them, meaning their maximum HP is going to be reduced by 8, and the enemy can't be healed. This is a little niche, but it does come in handy for some battles that are going to be prolonged. And it has 2 other abilities as well. You have Dreadful Glare, which is nice because this will force the enemy to be frightened. You also have Multi-Attack. This is basically doing your Rotting Fist just multiple times. However, it can only be used on targets that are already frightened. So this is useful if you have other classes that can frighten the target for you in advance. For example, Oathbreaker Paladins have the ability to do an AoE Fear. This is really nice for doing a pseudo CC while also maintaining the ability for your mummies to do follow-up damage. In Act 2, there's actually going to be a unique item you can obtain if you have Gale in your party. He does not need to actually be the origin character. As long as you complete the ritual inside Balthazar's chambers, you will actually receive the Moon Lantern. The Moon Lantern will give you the ability to conjure a Shadow Lantern Wraith. So I will go ahead and summon this creature. And the Shadow here, although it is a little weak HP wise, it's kind of like a rogue in a way. It's very stealth based. It has 2 abilities. You have Necrotic Claws, which if you attack from the shadows, it will automatically roll a stealth check to go back stealth. It also has the ability Strength Drain, which puts a debuff on the enemy for 2 turns, reducing their strength by 3, and this can stack. What's really nice about this, if you're fighting melee characters that have strength-based weapons, this will reduce their damage and their hit chance, which is pretty cool. If you somehow do get a target that have 0 strength, which most likely would be a caster, you will have the cool ability to instantly kill that target. Chances are, though, you would have to really try to do that, though. I've only done it once in my playthrough. However, just reducing the strength in general is nice for those other melee characters we talked about. This character does have sunlight sensitivity, so you can see I am inside the sunlight. If I go to attack, I am at disadvantage. But if I go into the shade and I go to attack, the disadvantage is no longer there. One other thing with this creature as well, although it is considered an undead minion, it is not affected from your proficiency bonus for a Necromancer. So this would be something that if you have another caster that would like to have another pet to summon, while the Shadow Lantern can be used on other characters other than Gale. And for those that were wondering, what if you go to summon and create undead using items instead of your own personal spells that you have as a Necromancer? So on my character, you can see I have the Circle of Bones helmet or circlet. You get this from Balthazar in Act 2. This is really nice because this will have all allied undead within 20 feet. They are resistant to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage. This is really nice to have on someone else in your party that's going to be in melee. That way, the undead you summon, they're still considered allied. They will have this resistant to damage as well. But it does give you the Animate Dead spell. And then, of course, following a quest chain that I will talk about later in the video, you can get the Cryptlord's Ring, which will give you Create Undead as a spell itself through the ring. So if I go to actually summon undead normally through my Animate Dead, I'll just go ahead and use a skeleton here, and I'm only going to use 1 corpse for this. I'm going to use my Create Undead spell here itself as my Necromancy spell using my 6th level spell slot. So if I go to use the items, the question is, will I still be able to summon more undead? Well, I'm going to showcase that for you now in case you were wondering. So here we are with the Create Undead once per long rest. I'm going to use it on this corpse. And you can see, even though one was a spell slot versus the actual item, because it is the same type of spell, the one overrides the other. And if I come over here and use the circlet to do the animate dead per long rest, I can't upcast this at all. And you can see, although I am a Necromancer, it's still only going to be one corpse. So I'm going to go ahead and summon. It still overrides the other. So my recommendation, if you go to use the ring of the Cryptlord ring or the Circle of Bones, use this on other characters because your Necromancer isn't going to need it. So I do want to talk about, before we go into breaking down builds in general for the Necromancer, I do want to talk about some gear here. So if you take a look at my gloves, in Act 1, you can get the Abyss Beckoners. Summoned creatures have resistance to all damage except Psychic. However, at the start of your turn, of the creature's turn, it must make a Wisdom saving throw or it goes mad. So I want to showcase, this is an aura, as you can see, around me, the caster. So this could be somewhat useful for your skeletal archers since they attack from ranged. However, because you are squishy as a wizard, you do not want to be in melee damage. So chances are this is going to be pretty useless for you. However, I do want to showcase it is actually really dangerous to use as well. So I'm going to go ahead and animate here, and I'm just going to get a couple of my skeletons up. I'm going to summon my Wraith as well. And you can see they had to roll and they failed. And because they failed, they went mad and they started attacking. So these gloves are very dangerous. In my opinion, it is not worth using at all. As you can see, my skeleton went mad and attacked my ally. If you have an Oathbreaker Paladin, for example, that's in range, they do have the Aura of Protection to give saving throw bonuses to everyone. But even still, you can still fail that saving throw and have your undead attack allies. So in my opinion, the gloves are not worth using whatsoever. While we are on the topic of Oathbreaker Paladins, I do want to clear something up in case anyone is confused. They do have the Aura of Hate, which gives you a modifier equal to your charisma bonus to increase you and nearby fiends/undead additional damage to melee weapons. This is very specific because all the undead you summon, none of them use melee weapons. The archers do not. They use range, so it doesn't affect them. And the zombies, ghouls and stuff that actually attack, they attack with improvised attacks, unarmed attacks, and it does not count for Aura of Hate. So Aura of Hate is only going to affect the Oathbreaker Paladin itself, as well as a Cambion. You can see I have a Cambion summoned here. This Cambion does have a melee weapon, so this will be affected by Aura of Hate. This is the only one that I can actually have be affected by that. Everything else is not affected. And there is one more unique summon you can actually have on any class. If you have Will during Act 2, during the final fight with the transition with Act 2 and Act 3, when you go to do the attack with Moonrise Towers, you can actually get a unique rapier called the Infernal Rapier. And this will actually give you the ability to summon a Cambion, which is really nice because normally this spell is only tied to really high level clerics. So now I can summon that. I can have him right here as my minion as a Necromancer, even though normally I would not be able to get that. So when it comes to gear, before I break down builds, I do want to state that there are a few pieces of gear that are going to sync together really, really well. And there are some pieces I'm going to point out for Acts 2 and 1, because majority of the gear you have for Acts 1 and 2 are straight up just going to be any type of caster gear. However, there are some things that, in my opinion, are going to work out a little bit better than others. So, for example, in Act 3, the Hood of the Weave, very powerful, gives you +2 bonus to spell save DC and attack rolls. However, in Act 2 at Moonrise Towers, you can actually buy off the vendor. There is a helm called the Fistbreaker Helm. You get +1 bonus to spell save DC, and you gain +1 to your initiative. Pretty useful. When it comes to your cloaks, pick whatever you want. I mean, the Cloak of Protection is really useful, and Cloak of the Weave is really powerful to gain +1 to your spell save DC and attack rolls, and also have absorb elements as well. Really though, cape, just pick what you want. Your chest piece, I went with Robe of the Weave. This is really powerful. You gain +1 to your spell save DC and attack rolls. Really, really strong. Whenever you succeed a saving throw against spells, you also gain 1d6, and it gives you AC +2. So that is a really powerful chest piece that you get in Sorcerer's Sundries. Definitely worth using for sure. Gloves, there are a couple of gloves I'm going to point out. So the Spellmight gloves, in my opinion, are better for like a Warlock, for example, for like Eldritch Blast spam. Because there's very few necrotic spells, necromancy spells I should say, that actually have attack rolls. But this is nice if you go to cast other spells that have attack rolls to do extra damage, because you can toggle it on and off. However, in Act 2/1 in the Mountain Pass, you can buy the Daredevil gloves, giving you +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and your ranged spell attacks. You can toggle this on and off in combat, essentially allowing you to do ranged attacks as if you were in melee. So if there's anyone right next to you and you don't want to move so they don't get attacks of opportunity on you, you could toggle that on and off to do a ranged spell as melee instead. Realistically though, pick whatever you want. This is going to be up to you on how you do it. You could also do Gloves of Belligerent Skies. This is nice because you can inflict reverberation as well if you use thunder, lightning, or radiant damage. Pick what you want. The boots I have, you get inside Act 1. These are nice because this just gives you a way to inflict reverberation consistently. This debuff is nice because it reduces strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws to the enemy. Once they hit 5 stacks, they take thunder damage and make a saving throw to be knocked prone. So this is nice to basically knock prone on enemies just periodically and passively without you even doing anything. The neck piece here, this is from Act 1 at the vendor inside the Mushroom Colony. Very powerful. Whenever you cast magic missiles, you get to actually cast an additional magic missile. The reason I like this is because this is extremely strong. So magic missiles is force damage, right? Hardly anything is going to resist force damage in this game. You can target multiple things at once, and if the enemy is resistant to necrotic, for example like Bone Chill, your Dethrone, Vampiric Touch, these are all necrotic damage. So in Act 2, good chances are, because it's mainly undead, you will have a lot of enemies resistant to necrotic damage. That's when magic missiles will come in handy, because they will not be resistant to this most likely. However, this is really nice because if you combo this with the Kalos Glow Ring and the Corsication Ring, whenever you do your magic missiles, you will be putting radiating orbs, doing additional radiant damage, and stacking reverberation all at the same time. It is really, really strong. When it comes to the bow, pick whatever you want. I added this just to give myself haste without using a spell slot. Gain resistance to fire and cold damage. You can put whatever you want here. Pick whatever you think is going to be useful. The Hellrider bow is nice just to get +3 bonus to initiative as well. The Dead Shot for extra crit. Pick whatever you want here. Not going to make that much of a difference. Now when it comes to your weapons themselves, there are quite a few things. We already talked about the Shadow Lantern, but I do want to talk about if you do want to dual wield staves, dual wielding the legendary staff here with the Staff of Cherished Necromancy is actually a deadly combo. So let's talk about the actual legendary staff first. So this gives you Arcane Battery, so I could use this and my next spell is free, doesn't cost a spell slot, which is pretty cool. But I can actually gain +1 bonus to my spell save DC and attack rolls, which is, you know, it's just a nice bonus. But you also gain ability to choose one of these elements you can do. So in my opinion, I say either go with Cataclysm, so your spells will also do AoE like acid stuff, like Noxic Fumes, for example, around the target, or go with Poison. I think Poison fits the necrotic theme really well. And with the legendary staff as Poison, I do want to showcase it does work with non-poison spells. So I'm going to attack Asterion here. So I'm just going to use our rank 1 magic missiles on him. And you can see he is poisoned as well, which is nice. He got the radiating orbs. Like, it's really, really powerful, which is why I like dual wielding legendary staves with the necrotic staff or using the moon lantern for the shadow wraith. Of course, if you don't want to dual wield staffs because that does take a feat, feel free to put a shield here if you're using a human or a half elf just to get the extra AC that way. Let's talk about the best staff in the game for any type of necromancer, the Staff of Cherished Necromancy. This thing is one of the, like, this thing is just absurdly broken, and I'm going to showcase why. So A, all creatures have disadvantage on saving throws against your necrotic spells, or necromancy spells I should say. So chances are they're going to fail their spell save DCs majority of the time. But what makes it really good is like Harvest. So whenever you kill a hostile creature with a spell, you absorb the life energy until your next long rest, allowing you to use the soul as a spell slot instead. That is really, really strong. So I'm going to go ahead and attack this piece of wood to see if they patched it yet. And you can see they did not. So I just attacked like random things. I didn't even attack enemies yet. I could and I didn't. And I have life essence. So that might be patched to where it only works on living creatures, but right now you can just destroy like boxes and stuff and gain the life essence from a box. And I'm sure you're wondering like, what? Yeah, so like right now you can see I'm out of spell slots. My level 6 spell slot is gone. So what does that mean? Well, that means I can use my life essence here. And as long as it's a necrotic spell, I can use it. So here, bam, I can do that right there. Really, really insane. So you can see create undead, level 6 necromancy spell. I can use it because I'm using life essence. Really insane, basically free spell slots indefinitely. It is cracked. It is so, so good. Alright, so let's talk about my spell list here because there are quite a few spells I think are going to be good and quite a few spells that I kind of think are just trash. So A, in Sorcerer's Sundries, if you are a wizard, there are some unique books you can receive while doing everything down there. You gain the ability Artistry of War. This is basically magic missiles when crack. Hits really, really hard, really powerful spell. You also have Dethroned, which is a necromancy spell. You can use it once per long rest. Very, very strong. You also have the ability to summon some more creatures as well. So while you're there, you can also summon Diva. The angel can come down as well. Really, really powerful. When it comes to other spells in general though, let's talk about them because there are some that I think you should definitely have. So A, if you don't plan to use any type of clothing, you don't need mage armor. But unlike sorcerers that have built-in mage armor, as a wizard you don't. So if you use any clothing, you definitely want the mage armor just for the free +3 to your AC. I think Enhanced Leap, Longstrider are really powerful because these are ritual spells. So I could cast Longstrider without using a spell slot on all my undead minions so they have increased movement. I can cast it on myself. I can cast it on allies. Really, really strong. Definitely worth having. And I like using Enhanced Leap for outside of combat just to give me and my team better jumping distance. I really like having Conjure Elemental. This thing is really strong. And I'm going to showcase why you should have a 6th rank spell slot for it. So I'm actually going to put my other necklace on here. And I'm going to give my 6th spell slot back for a second. So what I want to do is Conjure Elemental. You can use this as a higher spell slot to get a Myrmidon instead. And these things are very powerful. Conjure Elemental on its own is really strong. But when you upgrade it to a Myrmidon, it's even better. My favorite is the water version. The water version, you can see, has a ton of HP, but it also has really good abilities. You have the weapon attack that does a bunch of cold damage. It can fly across the battlefield. It has the ability Explosive Icicle that it can target multiple times. It's really strong, and I really like this a lot. If you're already going to have a lot of minions, you might as well have some of the better ones as well. So that's why I think the Conjure Elemental is really powerful on Necromancers as well. When it comes to other useful spells, I do like the Globe here. This is a really powerful spell. It is a 6th rank spell slot, and because it's not necrotic damage or a necromancy spell, you can't use life essence for it. But this is basically, you pop this, for the next 3 turns, you and your allies in that barrier are going to take 0 damage. It's a great way if you need to heal up. Really, really strong. Other useful spells, we already talked about magic missiles, but I like Misty Step. Being able to use a bonus action and teleport to get to safety is really strong. And when it comes to your necromancy spells, I think Vampiric Touch is pretty good. I think Blight is pretty good as well. I think Circle of Death is really bad in some situations. So I'm going to take off my Enhanced Sleep and put Circle of Death on instead, because I do want to showcase how this spell works. So although Circle of Death is a 6th rank spell, so you would think it'd be really strong, it's weird the way it works. So I popped my little Soul Harvest here, so it's free. And you can see it's weird the way it works. I can't just target the ground. When I target enemies, it just does it in an AoE around that enemy, not in an AoE target like Fireball, for example, which I think is really weird. I mean, it's great for AoE damage, don't get me wrong, but because you can't control the exact area that it goes, it has limitations, so keep that in mind. Of course, I do think Shield is also another great spell to have. It's a reaction spell. Whenever you would normally take damage, you could use this and increase your AC by +5, giving you even more tankiness, which is really nice because as a wizard, you are extremely, extremely squishy. And I like having Ice Storm just for AoE ice fields, really, really powerful, but I don't necessarily always use this. I think having your counter spell when you do actually get this spell is super useful. Being able to counter really powerful spells in the late game can make the difference between life and death, especially on Tactician mode. The Freezing Sphere is okay. I just like messing around with this because you can use this and take the sphere and pickpocket people for an explosion, but that's a video on its own. When it comes to other spells though, I would say Disintegrate is a very powerful spell as well. I wish it was Necromancy, but it's not, so you do keep in mind if you use this, you may want to use it with the legendary Arcane Battery, so it's free. But those are the spells I think are just going to be really useful while you play the game. Conjure Minor Elementals, okay. You could use this if you want maximum, just like pets everywhere. You could definitely do this because you could also summon some cool like mud or ice versions. And you also have the other one as well. I don't think this one's worth using. I think the ice are better, but you can summon them. So you can have a lot of minions at once. Lastly, I do want to give a shout out to Cloud of Daggers, Darkness, and Hold Person. All of these have their own uses in their own way, as well as Fireball as well. So those are the spells I personally like using. Feel free to use whatever you want, but those are what I like. So some fun things in my opinion to pair with the Necromancer are obviously going to be Warlocks. I think Oathbreaker Paladins are really strong. My personal favorite is going 7 Oathbreaker Paladin, 5 Blade of the Pact Warlock. Really, really strong and a fun combo. If you have other Necromancers in your party, for example, if you go 6 into Wizard, 6 into Eldritch Knight, you can make a true Death Knight melee like summoner build, which is really strong. So as long as you have ways to keep your undead without dying in AoE, it's going to work out no matter where you're at. So let's go ahead and actually break down the build I like using for my Necromancer, and then we'll talk about how to get the staff and the quest chain as well. Alright, so this is my stat spread that I like doing for my Necromancer. Dexterity 16, Constitution 14, Intelligence 16, and Wisdom 12. The reason this is 16 is because I don't plan to use the Hag's Hair in this character. Obviously, if you have the Hag's Hair, you could easily change this around, but I don't. So when you go to build this character, do you want to think of, are you going to be dual wielding staves, like I showcased a little bit earlier? If so, keep in mind there is a specific feat you will need. If you do not plan to dual wield staffs and you just want to use a staff and a shield, or it's just a regular staff, the third feat is going to be up to you. So when it comes to your spells, I already talked about spells I thought were universally useful and whatnot. So I do want to state, leveling up though, at level 1, this is what I went with. I went with all these spells here, and these are the cantrips I used. So if you want to copy me exactly how I did it, this is what I did. So obviously level 2, you pick your Necromancer subclass, you get some more spells. Again, pick whatever you think is going to be useful for you and your friends. Level 3, pick whatever you want here. Cloud of Daggers can be really useful, and I like grabbing Misty Step. Level 4, you get another cantrip. You get some more spells. So here, pick what you think is going to be good. Darkness and Hold Person is my personal favorite at this point. Feat, it's going to be Ability Improvement. Get that up to 18. And of course, if you already had the Hag's Hair, that could be maxed already. Level 5, you get some more spells. I like going with Counterspell and Fireball. Or Vampiric Touch. Pick whatever you think is going to be more useful for you. Wizard level 6, we talked about this already, but this is when you get the better summons and you get Animate Dead for free. Spell-wise, if you didn't already have it, take Haste or Vampiric Touch here. Glyph of Warding is okay, can be useful, but as this build specifically, I don't use it that much. Level 7, some more spells, so this is when you get some higher ranked spells. If you want some more minions, Minor Elemental can be useful, but this is when you also get Blight. Wizard level 8, you get even more spells, which is nice, so go ahead and pick what you want. I like going with Ice Storm and or Dimension Door. I don't use Dimension Door all that much, but it is nice in certain situations. You get your second feat here, so if you plan to use dual staffs, you could use Defense or Dual Wielder now in order to dual wield multiple weapons that normally aren't considered light. This is nice because this will also give you +1 AC while dual wielding. Or if you plan to use dual staffs at the end game, just do ability improvement and get dual staffs later on. Wizard 9, you get some more spells. Get your Conjure Elemental for sure. This thing's really strong even without upcasting it. As for the other spells, pick whatever you want. Cloud Kill or Cone of Cold are also pretty useful, but it depends on how you play. Wizard 10, that's when you get resistance to necrotic damage. Cantrip wise, pick what you want. Spell wise here, again, pick whatever you think is going to be good for you and your party. Wizard level 11, you get some really nice spells now. So this is when you can get Create Undead, you can get Disintegrate, you can get Eye Bite, you can get Globe. Eye Bite's nice because this is considered a Necromancy spell and it does do CC. So with this and the Staff of Cherished Necromancy, with the Soul Harvest, you could use this repeatedly, which is pretty cool. So it would be useful to have this if you want some extra CC as well. Of course, majority of these spells you can learn through scrolls anyway, so you don't necessarily need it. But do keep in mind, if you don't have the scroll to learn it, you could go ahead and get it this way. And for the final feat, if you plan to dual wield, like I mentioned, go ahead and get Dual Wielder. If you don't, the final feat is up to you. And that is basically the build, guys. I'm sorry the editing on this one isn't as top tier like I would normally want it. I'm not sure if you can tell by my voice, but I am still sick. And I did want to get this video out while my voice was somewhat normal, rather than waiting another like 4 or 5 days to make a video for you. So if you did find this video useful, please like and subscribe, because I will be having more class guides and more coming out. And the rest of this video is going to be showcasing the actual quests in order to get the staff as well as the Cryptlord's ring. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Alright guys, to start the quest that you need in order to get the ring, so you don't have to actually waste a spell slot, or if you want to use the ring on another character, you will want to come here on the map. You either want to break this wall or simply lockpick it, and then that will lead you to the Necromancer guy. Once you start the dialogue, you will want to choose the option that says, is there anything I can do for you? That way you can actually start the quest. He talks about his person Thrumbo, and we'll talk about him in a moment. So go ahead and say you got a deal, because you're going to end up, spoiler alert, betraying this guy anyway if you do want to get the ring. That's the only way to do it. But before you do that, while you're here, although he does have a lot of great stuff, you will want to buy one thing specific off of him, because once you actually finish the quest, all the items he has on him will drop except for one piece of gear. And that piece of gear is a piece of gear you actually want for the build, which is the Hood of the Weave, giving you +2 to your spell DC and attack rolls. So definitely make sure you buy this. Everything else, the morning chest piece here, armor of the Spore Keeper, including his weapon and the quest reward, you can get all that stuff after completing the quest. You want to get this right now though, because if not, you will not be able to get it later on. Once you bought the headpiece and you accept the quest, you want to come right here on the map. It's literally right next to the area you were just in, because inside here is actually Thrumbo. And do not make the mistake of accidentally attacking him. You want to actually be on Thrumbo's side in order to get the ring. Basically, while talking to Thrumbo, he tells you how terrible of a person he is. I won't spoil the quest chain when it comes to the story, but you should be on Thrumbo's side anyway. I choose to decide how did you end up working for him, and he tells you the story. And then choose the option that basically states, I'll help you. If you are a cleric, you do get additional dialogue, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. As long as you continue the quest from this point onward, you're good to go. Now, this is the important part. Don't hit, I think I'll kill you. You'll screw the quest up. You want to hit the actual part that says, I'll find and destroy the jar. The next part of the quest, you want to come right here on the other side of the mansion, and you'll actually see a little hole you can go into. So you have a couple ways to get in there. If you are a small race, you can simply just go in there. I, however, don't have a small race on me. I don't have small person as a spell, so what I'm going to do instead is use Mask of the Shapeshifter. I'm going to put this on, and I'm just going to disguise self as a small race, like a gnome, for example. So now I can go in the hole. So while we're here, you just want to find the book, because this tells you about the mummy and how basically he is the bad guy. You'll get the update to the journey, and we will continue with the next part of the quest chain. Okay, so from here you want to go to Undercity Ruins, because you're going to actually go in a secret spot. Well, it's really not that secret, but behind this guy, that wall can actually open, but there's a lever you have to hit, so we're just going to go around the long way by going through here. Once you're in this room, be warned, you will get jumped by a bunch of skeletons, and it's actually going to be over here that you need to go, because inside this other area is the spot you need to get the other part in order to destroy the mummy. Alright, so after you deal with all the zombies and whatnot in this room, get all the treasure, obviously, and then you'll find a stone wall here. Even if you don't get the perception check, you can still attack this to open it. You can simply hit it with a blunt weapon and it will break eventually, or you can simply lockpick it as well. Either works. Now when you come in, there's a couple of things you need to do that's very important. This book right here, you have to read this book. This tells you that the other piece you need to destroy the mummy is actually inside Thrumbo himself, so definitely make sure you read this book. You'll see the jar of Mystic Carrion's brain is right there, so you want to grab this, just put it somewhere where your party won't get hit by it. Have everyone line up and just have somebody destroy it. So for me, I'm just going to have my mage go ahead and attack it. Oh, it's some unique damage. Didn't know that. Well, firebolt it is. There we go. One thing I forgot to mention, inside this chest right here in this room is also this jar of Mystic Carrion's liver as well. So you definitely want to make sure you'll take that, throw that on the ground, and make sure to get rid of that as well. So when you come back to Thrumbo, you can tell him that the last piece is actually inside his chest. He throws it up, and now you can destroy it. So if you go to destroy it here, be careful. You don't want to hit Thrumbo. If you hit Thrumbo, he could possibly aggro, and you don't want him to aggro because you want him on your side. So simply just continue to throw it outside is my suggestion. So grab it, keep throwing it. You can put it in your inventory if you want to. So there it is. You can throw it down. And I'm just going to blow it up. And now when you talk to Thrumbo, you can complete the quest by going back to the Mystic Carrion and basically getting revenge, getting all of his loot and the crypt ring as well, which is nice because if you don't want to waste a spell slot on summoning a 6th rank create undead spell, you can do that. And you can also use that ring on any other class besides your Necromancer as well, which is really cool. And once you defeat the Mystic Carrion, you can see you can loot him and get pretty much everything he had besides the scrolls, the chest piece. You get the nice staff of Cherished Necromancy, which is the best Necromancer staff in the game. And Thrumbo and all of his friends come, and you can talk to them, and you get the actual ring as well. Thrumbo has some things you can buy off of him as well if you did want to get some other things here as shown on screen, but he doesn't really have that much. But the important thing is you get the Cryptlord's ring. This is a 6th level Necromancy spell. Although the staff will give you free spell slots, this ring is really nice to use, especially if you follow the Death Knight guide that I'll have a part 2 for. However, if you don't want to waste a spell slot or give this to any other person in your party for a free mummy, you can do that.